Welcome, Cowpoke, to this virtual introduction to the founding of our new city. This transmission is being sent from the year 2269, which is a very special year because we'll be celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Great Battle of Valley Metro Rail and the defeat of the shadowy cabal led by a billionaire tycoon who met his demise in that fateful summer of 2019. To commemorate, we will be forming a new city in the wasteland of the American Southwest. And if you're seeing this, it means we need your expertise. So far, we have been able to recover some documents of that bygone civilization in the form of interactive graphic puzzles, a film, satellite footage from something called Google, and a verbal testimony by a lifetime resident of a town called Phoenix, Arizona.
Hi, my name is Valentina. I've been a resident of Phoenix and the surrounding suburbs for nearly all my life, about 17 years, and you can find me on Twitter at Leftistthot420, which is where I'm most popular. So, the reason Phoenix itself exists, the guy who found it was a former Confederate soldier, and he finds this valley that's really good for farming. And he goes, I'm going to make my community here. And one of the guys in his group was this British dude who said, we should call it Phoenix because it was rising out of the ashes of a former civilization. Phoenix is the biggest city that's built like this except for Los Angeles. They're all kind of built the same. It's like they're all these oases or cities in the desert, and they're all flat and really spread out with this one couple city blocks that are actually built up. And Los Angeles is actually kind of breaks that rule because they have an actual public transit system and they have a bigger downtown, but that's because they're a world city. But everything else in the Southwest is built like that. All these cities became really big after World War II, so everybody has a car. Now everything in, Phoenix is all built on these giant, I'd say about a mile wide city blocks, and they can't be traversed any other way but driving. Phoenix is just kind of swallowed up all the cities in its path, and now it's just this giant blob of concrete in the middle of Arizona.
Phoenix was, by all accounts that we have access to, a hellish dystopia to anyone without access to a car and a comfortable income. Of course, Phoenix's layout was planned long ago, before cars or even trains. The National Land Survey system of the 1780s, shortly after the American Revolutionary War, was a grand effort to divide all the land of what came to be the 50 states into a seemingly infinite grid of square-mile portions. These square-mile portions were then sold off bit by bit as real estate to be settled or farmed, as the United States pushed further and further west into indigenous territory. In many communities, this invisible grid became etched into reality by roads. Phoenix's neighborhoods are defined by these roads. After the United States seized claim of the Southwestern Territory from the state of Mexico in the mid-19th century, they divided it into 4 subsidiary states: Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico, which all meet on their own grid at a place that was once known as the Four Corners, and before that was lived in by a community called the Ancestral Pueblo or the Anasazi, depending on who you ask. This grid of the horizontal plane was made up of these 6-lane car facilities, wider than a horse's pupils at dusk. But these weren't the only physical barriers.
All of the neighborhoods are walled off. And I'm sure the reason they started, aside from the whole class thing, to be we're a fancy neighborhood, we keep the trouble out and whatnot, it's also because of the noise. We'd have these massive trucks blaring past us constantly, right? While we're trying to hang out in the pool or something. So it kind of creates a ghost town effect. So you've got these big, these, winding roads and these very manicured communities, but nobody really walks around in them too much, or they don't own a car. And they're in an unfortunate position where they're homeless or they're unable to drive for some other reason. And those are kind of the people that you would not want in the heat. I feel almost in the same way that people who are handicapped become very acutely aware of how many issues there are with getting around. If you expand that a level, the people who can drive with no problem never really take notice that they're living in a place that is basically built only for driving. You know, I can walk to one restaurant, two gas stations that were the same brand next to each other, which was kind of funny. And that's it. That's where I can walk. I can't walk anywhere else or I'll get heat stroke. I tried to walk 2.5 miles from the mall to my house, and I almost got heat stroke.
Another document we have salvaged is The Water Knife, a story of words collected by Paolo Bacigalupi, words that tell a version of Phoenix that was a dust-draped sprawl of low-rises and abandoned single families slumping across the flat desert basin, the remains of a metropolitan sea that had flooded the open basin, filling it with houses and boulevards until they lapped against the saguaro-studded mountains at its rim. This story describes the city as practically a war zone, where only the very rich were able to live in comfort in the skyscrapers of the city center, in air-conditioned boxes like larvae in cocoons, but no butterflies seemed to emerge. In our recovered satellite imagery, we noticed the fabled Sun City, a retirement community full of lush canals and golf courses that was founded after a developer in the 1960s bought the land on speculation and pushed out a farming community. And there was the resort community of Scottsdale, where tourists from abroad and those with disposable income in Phoenix were invited to experience staycations, where they would express their income through luxurious accommodations and steakhouses. Though Phoenix is landlocked, one of these resorts even made one of their pools out to be a false beach with 9,000 square feet of imported sand. So it was clear that this society was able to shape the land to their exact desires, but at a great cost to their own economy and to the land that once hosted them. Phoenix seemed on the brink of becoming the very war zone described in that story, but then there was a moment of victory that we celebrate to this day.
The Valley Light Rail there was like kind of a streetcar or light rail boom in and around like the late 2000s. So a lot of cities either built them brand new or they expanded them. It's a very generic light rail system, runs up and down in a straight line. It's an important transit corridor. So the group was called Building a Better Phoenix, and they wanted to get 20,000 signatures, vote a referendum, kill the light rail. It's part of the Koch brothers funding campaigns to end transit in cities. Yeah, it actually looks like Nashville's light rail got defeated by this same group. So they were obviously just like this kind of shadowy political cabal that goes around and tries to kill light rail. But obviously, we're not going to vote against our own light rail like that, and we get to keep our light rail expanding. And since all of our high density development operates along that corridor, it's a really good system.
The day was won. The billionaire keeled over in defeat, and mass transit around the Phoenix area continued to expand until the start of the energy wars in 20. And now we're here.
Extreme heat damage detected.
It was a philosopher whose name has been lost, who said that art is a rehearsal for life. That is, that all forms of art produced by a civilization, paintings, stories, even interactive movie puzzles like this one, are not only inseparable from the civilization that produced them, but that by consuming them, viewers themselves participate in the art. For instance, in this movie Inherent Vice, the main character is a Caucasian man acting as a private detective on a quest to locate a missing real estate tycoon. And he ends up unraveling a sinister underworld in a southwestern city called Los Angeles. Los Angeles, like Phoenix, was a low-density mess of urban sprawl whose traffic made traveling by car even a mile or two a great test of patience. Yet we're made to believe that this private detective is able to complete his quest in the span of about 2 hours. Because no matter what he does, it seems that every new scene and setting he's brought to has something to do with his furthering that quest. Where you come in as a participant is piecing together the part of the puzzle that isn't displayed on screen. Understanding that many things crucial to the story, such as the characters eating or going to the bathroom or sleeping, are not included in the movie. In Grand Theft Auto 5, the participant plays the role of a trio of bank robbers as they go from heist to heist, accruing wealth across Los Santos, which is a city eerily similar to the Los Angeles depicted in Inherent Vice and other reclaimed media. Grand Theft Auto 5 compresses geography. The city is only a fraction of the size of any real Los Angeles, and is virtually devoid of pedestrians or traffic. Because if you were to steal a car and go on a high-speed police chase in actual Los Angeles, you'd just get stuck on the freeway on-ramp like a space lizard on a hot rock. In No Man's Sky, you play a traveler warping around outer space searching for clues about ancient history and gathering resources to build a home base. This story depicts a vast frontier, outer space, as something almost designed to be conquered. If you run out of materials on one planet, all you need to do is fuel up your spaceship and do a warp jump into a nearby solar system to find more. This is compression on a galactic scale. Just look how close these planets are together. If you went outside and looked into the sky and saw Mars looming there in full detail, I bet you'd experience a cardiac event. Of course, here in the year 2269, we have no form of space exploration, so your city might be far more advanced than ours. We actually don't have cars. We have a primitive combination of a car and a train called a crane. But the point here is that these visions of the Southwest and of frontiers are crucial in our relationship to our new city. You may even know some stories that represent the world in similar ways. And the final piece of Valentina's oral history uncovered something truly moving, a vision of the American Southwest at its most tragic. She retells the story of Fallout New Vegas, a post-nuclear wasteland not too unlike our own.
So Fallout New Vegas is the story of a courier living 200 years after a nuclear war who is now caught between a new war over the Hoover Dam and the future of this reconstructed Vegas. It's a role-playing game built off of a 50s version of the future bathed in nuclear fire, with this southwestern facade over the whole thing. A lot of 6-shooters, Old West towns, root beer, that kind of stuff. You shoot, you talk, and gamble your way through the ruins of the Southwest, leading into a grand final battle between two massive armies who are one courier short of a total victory. You're given the choice of siding with the neoliberals in the New California Republic, the fascists in Caesar's Legion, or you can forge a new path for Vegas, either by yourself or with the owner of New Vegas, Mr. House. Fallout New Vegas reminds me a lot of my home. I grew up in the Southwest, and it's a place that I can call home. So I like that the game represents that very well, and it represents what it's like to live and exist and be in the sun-soaked desert of Nevada and Arizona and California. I complain about Phoenix a lot, but I do have a connection to the Southwest. Phoenix is so fundamentally flawed from the beginning. Everybody's so spread out. Obviously I can't uproot, the million people living in these single family detached homes. But that is the problem. There's so many of them, so spread out, you can't live it without a car. And eventually people are going to have to figure that out for themselves and leave the city of their own accord, or we're going to die of climate change before anything changes. And in 50 years, Phoenix will be this fallout necropolis of all these empty buildings washed away in the sand. And that's when I'll come back and make my life as a water trader.
This was not invented by a Russian. The man's name was Bell, Alexander Graham Bell. And he was an American. Get that, comrade. Everything on this table is as phony as the town. The rotten system you call communism.
Rebuilding from the ashes involves taking the best from the cities and stories of our past and leaving the rest. That's why we're calling our new city Vulture. Vulture, Schmerizona. And in order to craft our new society the way we need it to be, we're going to have to rethink the way we connect with the land and with each other. That's where we need you. Because as a resident of your community, you are the expert on everything that happens there. It's not that all these problems are solved by neighborhoods getting together and listening to each other, but in some cases it might be a good start. And hey, maybe 250 years from now, Vulture won't have any reason to exist. So let me know if your city is doing something stupid like this, or if your city is doing something to stop itself from becoming a hellish dystopia, or if you just think light rail is cool. Thank you for your time, and to Valentina for sharing her story, and for her foresight as someone so engaged with the issues of her own volatile time in history. And thank you to the people on Patreon who help support this transmission. The space-time rift is tricky to keep open, so every pledge helps. If this resonates with you, you can pledge just $1 right now to open up a new space-time rift where you can access previous bonus transmissions about other cities and other stories. Alright, thanks for watching, partner.